Today we're going to talk about some flossing topics, so let's roll that intro. Hey everyone, Dr. Eric Jackson here. Wanted to jump on real quick and answer a very common question. How often should I floss? Now, the bare bones answer, the brass tacks answer is once a day. But let's go into that a little bit further because that's not what we do here on this YouTube channel. We don't just leave things cut and dry. We go into them quite a bit of detail. The answer, once a day, is great. Well, what time of day? I like to recommend you brush your teeth and floss your teeth well right before bed. That makes a lot of sense, right? Should you floss first or brush first is often a common question for me. I always recommend floss first. The reason being that you're able to dislodge any of the food particles left over, the larger food particles left over from your dinner meal, and then your brush can be more effective in between. So in addition, why would you choose nighttime? Well, nighttime is important because you're about to go to bed and sleep for a certain number of hours where you're not producing as much saliva. You're not clearly brushing your teeth or drinking water or whatnot. A lot of problems can happen at night. So making sure that you practice good oral hygiene right before you go to bed is very, very important. Not that there's any unimportant time to do that, but I think if you had to pick one, that's probably the most important in my opinion, definitely at night, followed by the morning. All right, so you're flossing once a night, once a day, and why? Why do you have to floss? Well, let's go to the classic dental model. We love these guys in dentistry because it works so well. Simple for both pediatrics and adults. You have to floss in between your teeth because a brush, whether it's an electric brush or a manual toothbrush, is really only designed to get 3 of the 5 surfaces of your teeth. What sides are those? Well, you've got your outside, your bite surface, your top, and your inside. So the out, the top, the inside, that's 3 out of the 5. You're still missing the in-between on the front end and the in-between on the back end. If you're missing 2 of the 5 surfaces, that's 2 out of 5 is the same as 4 out of 10, which is 40% of the tooth. You are not cleaning properly 40% of the tooth. And that is a huge percentage. 60% clean is not a terribly good percentage. So what happens if you just don't floss very often or at all? Well, you're going to inevitably build up 2 main types of problems. One, tooth-borne problems. The bacteria that will sit on your teeth in between the teeth will start to slowly erode the enamel in those areas. Those are the in-between type cavities that people are very prone to get. And the reason is that because the bacteria just sits there, it sits and grows and multiplies and eats the sugar and creates acid as a byproduct of the whole metabolic process. And all that acid is centered in those areas, which is why people have such trouble with in-between type cavities. That's why we take those checkup x-rays periodically. So you have tooth-borne problems. If you don't brush and floss, if you don't floss properly, what happens in the gum department? Well, the gum department, it also is affected. That same bacteria that is building up and just sitting there in between the teeth. Eventually, it starts to build up on itself and almost turns into a concrete type mixture called calculus or tartar, depending on your choice of vernacular. They're synonymous. So you get that hard concrete-like buildup in between the teeth that once it builds up and once it calcifies like that, it is adhered to the tooth in such a way that you really can't remove it at home. You need a professional cleaning by a dental hygienist or a dentist to get that off of there. What happens if you leave it on there? Well, all that plaque and bacteria that's calcified into tartar calculus does the same exact thing as the tooth-borne problems. It creates acid, and it's the entryway to gum disease or periodontal disease, often known as periodontitis, right? So you get yourself a problem in between the teeth. The acid that's drilling into the tooth itself, creating cavities, also drips down in a way, down into the gums, into the bone, and starts dissolving the gum structure, the tooth structure, or the gum structure in addition to the tooth structure. The gum itself is altered. The underlying bone structure is altered. I use the analogy, much like the roof, your water off your roof, right? If you let the water off your roof cool at the base of your foundation, you're going to have basement problems eventually. Maybe not right away. Maybe some basements are different than others, depending on a lot of different factors. But ultimately, it's a pretty good analogy, I think, because if you have standing water sitting by your foundation, eventually you're going to get cracks in that foundation. The foundation will start to weaken, and you're going to have structural issues for your building. So, point is, you don't want any structural issues for your building, or your tooth for that matter. You want solid bone around it. Nice, big, large volumes of solid bone. You want healthy gums around the tooth as well. And then you have to make sure that the walls of the tooth, the walls of your building, are not being invaded by all this problem, by all the bacteria, the acid caused by the bacteria. What is the genesis of all this? Well, really, it's because you're not cleaning 40% of your tooth. Now, that's a whole different video. We're going to get into that at a different time. But I thought I would just jump in today and kind of explain the basis of that. I will mention one more thing. I like to call it spot flossing because that is the whole point. You're going to spot floss one spot or several a low number of spots as opposed to your regular flossing regimen at night before you go to bed. When would you do this spot flossing? Well, if you're having a meal and you get some food lodged in between your teeth. It happens to everyone from time to time. Well, then go grab the floss. You don't just leave it there until evening. You get the floss and you get it out. And it works out quite nicely. But you don't have to do a full flossing, typically more than once a day. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. I hope you learned a little bit of something. We'll put out more of these. As always, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then, of course, comment below if you have any ideas as far as what other topics you'd like to hear. I've got a couple additional flossing videos that I think I'm going to put through the pipeline here in the near future, but I'm open to anything. So drop me a line, let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now.